Hello everyone and welcome back to another hashtag trending. The Iran nuclear deal and all the news surrounding it was already hot enough even before last week's sabotage on an Iranian nuclear facility at Natanz. Now there has been some major developments to the story which has been making the rounds on social media. Stay tuned. So this week, Iran made good on its promise of increasing its nuclear enrichment capacity and made its first batch of 60% enriched uranium. This was a direct response by Tehran to the attack at Natanz last week, which is linked to Israel. Tehran says that this move shows that damaging nuclear facilities or assassinating scientists will not hinder Iran's peaceful nuclear program. All of this played out against the backdrop of the talks in Vienna, where the signatories to the struggling deal have been trying to revive it and even try to find a way to reincorporate the Americans into it. But that has proven to be extremely difficult, as Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif put it in a tweet. He said, "Nuclear terrorism at Natanz has unleashed a dangerous spiral that can only be contained by ending U.S. economic terrorism, initiated by Trump. Biden and Harris have a clear choice to make. Either the Obama-Biden deal or Trump's maximum failure campaign. No alternatives. The clock is ticking for the Americans and for their chance to rejoin the deal." Our next comment comes from Richard Medhurst. He wrote, "Iran has now enriched uranium to 60% as a response to Israel's attack on its Natanz nuclear facility. The Israelis and the media kept insisting that the damage was so severe that it had knocked out the plant for 10 months. More like 10 hours. Well, I see your point here, but technically speaking, that milestone was achieved at a different nuclear facility than the one that was struck last week." Our next comment comes from ASB News. They wrote, "Iran, I am proud to announce that at 40 minutes past midnight, Iranian scientists were able to produce 60% enriched uranium, just days after Natanz was sabotaged by Israel." Our next comment comes from Napster. He wrote, "Saying we've now enriched uranium to 60% is not the same thing as having actually enriched uranium to 60%. But if they have, good. Iranian policy versus US and Israeli attacks should always be, we don't negotiate with terrorists." Now, just to reply to the first part of your tweet, how do you propose we verify that? I mean, you could ask them to send us all a tiny bit of the thing, but I would say that's just wishful thinking and perhaps a shot in the dark. Anyways, our next batch of tweets, the first one by Whitgal, they wrote, "This is the right of Iran, which the US and the EU have deceived by the nuclear deal. Now I am expecting an Israeli bombing strike against an Iranian facility." No, you shouldn't. Anyways, our next tweet comes from Dennis Retke. He wrote, "So Israel provoked them and will then cry to the US to impose more sanctions because they feel threatened." Exactly, my friend. Our next comment comes from Justice Amin. He wrote, "It is good news for Iran's nuclear industry and good response to breacher US and its allies and Israeli child-killing regime. It also sends a message to the world that Iran means business." Our next comment comes from Sardinian Sunset. They wrote, "Who decides who can have nuclear power and who can't? Did any nuclear power today ask if they can have it? They are playing with Iran, but Iran has thousands of years of history and they will be here in another 1,000. Well, really, just another 1,000? I mean, what'll happen after that? But aside from that, yes, you were right. No one's asked the trigger-happy Americans to police the world. Literally no one. Not a single soul. Anyways, our final batch of tweets, the first one by Puria. He wrote, "No matter what they decide, Iran is in a win-win situation here. If they join the deal, then Iran will attain more income from frozen assets. If not, Iran will ramp up their nuclear energy." And our final comment of the day comes from Mahdi. He wrote, "Iran is what keeps the Western dictators awake at night. The only truly independent nation on earth." All right, that's been it for me and this edition of Hashtag Trending. It's time to get back to the studio now. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.